So the other day I did something I don't normally do. I listened to music. You might think that's weird coming from someone who runs a music channel on YouTube, but I don't listen to a lot of music these days. I don't listen to, especially new music. I don't know, I'm more of a podcast guy as of late. I like to learn things. Not that you can't learn things from music, but I just don't listen to a lot of it. But the other day I had a pretty long drive from where I live to Columbia, South Carolina. And I decided that since in my Let's Active video I did a few weeks ago, I mentioned that I didn't much care for the album Cypress when it came out. Well, when it came out, I was about 16 years old. I'm 56 years old now. I decided I'm going to listen to an album in my truck, which I have not done since I bought that truck a couple years ago. So there's a strange thing that happens like when you revisit music decades later, and it's not just nostalgia. It's not just memory. Sometimes it's a complete reversal. Okay, and again, this album didn't much care for it when it came out. Thought it was fine. It was well crafted, but I just didn't like it. But I went back to it knowing I didn't like it, and it's something I dismissed. Maybe even something I had almost avoided because I loved Let's Active so much. But this time it just clicked, and that's exactly what happened. It's an album I wrote off back then. It's an album I barely gave a chance, and now, here we are 40 years later, it's an album I really like. So let's get into it. Back in the mid-'80s, when I first got the Cypress cassette, my ears were tuned a certain way. Like a lot of us in the college rock scene, I wanted immediacy. I wanted hooks that grabbed me right away. Let's face it, I wanted an album full of 12 different versions of Every Word Means No. That's kind of what I wanted. Let's Active, they were led by Mitch Easter. They weren't going to do it that way. And Cypress was essentially their first album. Their previous release was an EP, I think of 6 songs, called Afoot, that were basically demos that were supposed to be just to get them signed. Well, IRS Records liked the demos so much, they just took it and put it out. So Cypress was really their first album. It's a subtle album, and when you're young, that can sometimes feel boring, and I think that's what I thought when I was younger. So I moved on. I kind of filed that album away in that mental drawer that was, labeled "Missed the mark" on this one. But meanwhile, I kept chasing records that hit harder, faster, maybe louder. I don't know. Let's Active was plenty loud. The ones that, demanded attention instead of asking for it. And decades later, that was Cypress, was a footnote. And again, I have not listened to this since I was 16 years old. Here's one thing's that interesting. Again, fast forward 40 years, different life, different expectations, and I gave it a shot, and I found something had changed. It wasn't the album that changed. It was me that had changed. And that's kind of cool because the different seasons of your life, you know how that works. But this time, instead of waiting for the songs to grab me, I kind of found myself leaning in to them and listening for texture and space, listening for the way the songs breathe. Now, it's a good record. Just going through some of the songs that I remember that kind of stood out. Now, I do remember I liked the song Easy Does. I thought it's a little bit too cute for its own good, even back when I got the album. And Waters Part, I always liked that one. And I think the song Pray, or We Pray for a Funny Coincidence. Yeah, that's the one. Those three I really did like, but I thought the rest of the album was kind of okay. It's way better than okay. Lowdown, I don't remember liking that one before, but it's really, really good. Crows on a Phone Line is really good. Ring True, that's a good song, but it completely fades out and the song's over, and then it fades back in for no reason, and I can't remember if the song actually ends or if it just fades back out again. It was just a weird choice. I like stuff like that. I like weird things. Blue Line, that one is, I know that one got some radio play at college radio stations. I like the song. It's pretty good. I think it goes one verse too long. I think when that last verse comes in, I'm like, I thought you guys were wrapping it up. Co-Star is much better than I remembered. Ornamental, also solid. This album is 80 to 85% great now that I've kind of matured and sort of understand better what they were going for. Because like I said, that first album, Afoot, or first EP, it was nothing but pop goodness, basically. It was all pop stuff. And this came out, and I can't imagine they were writing some of this stuff. Maybe they were. Maybe they were writing this stuff thinking this is going to be a hit. I could never see that happening, but it could be an artistic piece. It doesn't have to be a hit. You know, the tracks, they unfolded in a way I never noticed before. The guitars were, as always, great. But that's the magic, and sometimes the curse of time, right? Because back then, I didn't have the patience for this kind of album, but now this kind of album is kind of more what I'm looking for. And kind of when I listen or try to listen to new music, that's what's missing, I think, is some sort of depth. You know, it feels like so much is just written via algorithm, and that sucks. There's something really deeply human about the album Cypress. It's not polished in a way that screams perfection. It's not engineered to be anthemic. Like I said, there's no hits on this album. There's no way. But you know, I could see college radio embracing it, and I'm sure they did. I would have liked to have seen them live on this tour to see how they did that, how they did some of these songs. It doesn't hit you immediately. It sometimes an album takes 40 years to finally hit you, and that's what happened to me in my truck on the way to Columbia, South Carolina. And maybe that's the point, because, you know, why didn't I recognize how great this was back then? Anyways, that's kind of all I got for you. I really didn't have a script. If you like videos like this, just let me know if there's any artist that I have not talked about that you would like to hear me talk about. I love getting comments about that. But until the next time, you guys take care, and I will see you on the next one.